guys, welcome back to another true crime video. Today I have a very special guest, Dahlia, my leopard gecko, who you guys love very much, and I love her too so much. She's a good girl. Wow. If you heard that, it's currently storming outside, so I apologize, but hey, I guess it kind of sets the mood. Anyway, a lot of you guys have been asking for more true crime videos, and I've been wanting to do more. Truth is, I've just been a little bit not inspired, but there has been one that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and that's the one I'm doing today. And I've decided to do it on my main channel instead of my second channel. Normally I post all true crime videos on my second channel, but the reason why this one is getting posted on my main channel is because today's video has everything to do with this girl. Her namesake is after the Black Dahlia, which is one of the most famous and notorious cold case crimes in US history, and we're gonna cover it today. So I have Dahlia here to help me tell the story of her namesake, and let's go ahead and begin. I hope you guys enjoy it and are ready. Also, I'm probably gonna get demonetized, but it's worth it. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about the case of the Black Dahlia. So the reason I chose to name Dahlia after the Black Dahlia is number one, I love true crime, number two, I love history, and number three, I love the name Dahlia. Pretty great name, isn't it, girl? Okay. So to begin, the Black Dahlia's real name is actually Elizabeth Short. Now, Elizabeth Short was born on July 29th in the year 1924 in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. Wow, the thunder, okay. She was one of 5 daughters and was born to Cleo and Phoebe. Cleo was Elizabeth's father and Phoebe was Elizabeth's mother. Wow, I don't know why I can't say that right. But anyway, there is quite a few things that stand out in this case that are quite, you know, just interesting to me, and you're just gonna be like, what? Because that's how I was, and the first one is about to come up. So first of all, like I said, Elizabeth was born in the year of 1924, and that was right before the Great Depression that swept through the United States back in the 30s. Cleo, which was Elizabeth's father, made a living on designing little golf courses and stuff like that. He went around to different places designing and building them. And everything was going good all up until the Great Depression, and when this hit, something crazy happened. Now this is one of those things when me and Dahlia both were just like, what? Because it's a pretty crazy thing. During the Great Depression, okay, I'm just going to call her the Black Dahlia because it's really hard for me to get that word out, and I don't know why. Anyway, the Black Dahlia's father actually faked his own suicide. Yeah. So what he did basically was he drove his car to a bridge and staged the whole thing to make it look like he would have parked and jumped off, which would mean that he basically killed himself. So because of this, the Black Dahlia's mother, Phoebe, was led to literally raise all of these girls by herself. She had to work multiple jobs, and as I'm sure most of you know, back in the day, like in the 30s and just in that era, it wasn't common for the woman to do like the work. It was the man's job. So this was a big thing for Phoebe. It was really hard for her, and like I said, she did have to do multiple jobs to actually help and support her family. Well, after all of this hardship, one day out of the blue, after the Great Depression had kind of like simmered down, there came a letter in the mail. And who was this letter from? None other than Cleo. It was the Black Dahlia's father writing to admit that he did not commit suicide. He apologized for the faking of his own death and asked to come back and said that he missed his family. Well, Phoebe was not having this. She did not support it at all and was very mad about it, and so basically she shunned him out of her life and said, no, you did this crazy thing to us, like I'm having nothing to do with you. Well, Elizabeth was different and didn't really agree with that. She still loved her father and wanted to be in his life. So her father was actually living out in California, and at an early age, Elizabeth had always been obsessed with the movies and all things cinema. And whenever she figured out that her father was living in California, she saw it as a very good opportunity to move out there and maybe pursue a career in acting. One reason why she loved the cinema and movies so much was because during the hard time of having to be alone with her 4 sisters while her mother worked hard to support them, that was basically the only thing that they could do that was affordable. it was a really, you know, good, affordable, easy thing that allowed them entertainment. And so that kind of spanned her love for the cinema. So anyway, now that Elizabeth got the letter from her father and she actually decided that she wanted to go live with him, she set out for California. And she also, of course, had the hopes to be a movie star. So she went out there and her father offered to, you know, give her a home. She was to live with him while she got on her feet, because so basically what she was to do is she was to go out to California, live with her father while she looked for a job. Then when she got her own job, then she was gonna, you know, support herself. But it didn't really work out like that, so I do apologize my camera died, but I'm back. So now, just to remember where I left off, I do believe that I was saying that unfortunately things weren't really working out with her father, because it turned out that Elizabeth was quite lazy and didn't really keep up the chores and things that she was supposed to do while living with her father, and tended to just stay out late and party and have quite a wild dating experience. She was out with guys all the time and then partying and all that kind of stuff, and it was just a life that I guess her father just didn't really want her, didn't want to be around, didn't want her to be like. So basically he kicked her out. Now I do also want to say that Elizabeth got the nickname of Black Dahlia because of the movie The Blue Dahlia, which was out at the time, and she also really loved to wear black all the time, like sheer black outfits and things like that. So instead of calling her the Blue Dahlia like the movie, her friends incorporated the black clothing that she liked to wear all the time and called her the Black Dahlia. So that's how her nickname came to be. People actually also did call her Betty and Beth. So during this time of having to fend for herself, Elizabeth applied for a job at a place called Camp Cook. She was going to be a cashier, and she did for a while, and quickly she ran over the title of the cutie at Camp Cook by the men there. And even though she did, when living with her father, like live kind of a wild dating life and party situation, at that job she was known to be not easy, and so therefore she didn't go on dates much, because really at that point she wanted a stable relationship that was going to end in marriage. So she went from one extreme to kind of wanting the other, and so things weren't really working out there. She became uncomfortable and then decided to go live with a girlfriend. And now this girlfriend that she had lived in Santa Barbara. So now for September the 23rd of 1943, I guess she had got back to her ways of partying a lot and all that jazz. She was out with a few friends, and at the time she was underage, and she actually got arrested. Her and her friends were out late at a party being pretty rambunctious, and they got the police called on them. So that led to Elizabeth being arrested, and I guess the most famous photos out there, which I'm going to leave on the screen right here, are actually her mugshots, which is something that I never knew. But she got arrested. Nothing ever went down in the book. She never served time or anything like that. So basically it was just kind of let go, but she did have fingerprints on file from that in her mugshot, so it was like in the system. So after that, in the few years leading up to before her death, she actually got in a couple of serious relationships. The first one was with a pilot by the name of Gordon Fickling, and she was head over heels in love with him, but unfortunately he had to deploy and go to Europe. So they broke up, and it left her very heartbroken. Now a little while in the future, she actually got with another man who was also a pilot, but he was sent to India. Now they were actually supposed to get married, but he was sent away, so once again Elizabeth was left heartbroken. So anyway, after that, Elizabeth did try to pursue acting some more, but she was finding it really hard to get jobs as an actress, and was just really having a lot of difficulty and no luck, and obviously there was no money pouring in or anything like that, so it was just really hard to live altogether. So Elizabeth met a girl who she quickly became friends with by the name of Dorothy, and so Dorothy actually invited Elizabeth to go out and live with her for a while. So she left Los Angeles to go to San Diego to live with Dorothy for a while. Now when she was living with Dorothy, it was kind of the same situation as her father. She didn't really clean up after herself, help with chores or anything like that, and after overstaying her welcome for a month, she was sent out on her own again. So I guess kind of so far you guys can kind of tell that she was just kind of a rambling man, I guess, but a rambling woman. She was just kind of on the go all the time. She went from one place to another, and when she was actually offered places to stay, she didn't help and, you know, keep up with things and like volunteer to help the people that she lived with do chores or anything like that, which made them obviously push her out, and it was just not a good situation for her. She really wasn't getting anywhere that she wanted to be, so she just basically continued with dating around and partying. So close to her final days, she became infatuated and close with a man named Robert Manley, who went by the name of Red, like as a nickname, who had a pregnant wife at home, which is obviously not good at all. So that obviously wasn't good at all. Now, Robert did admit that he was infatuated with Elizabeth, but there was nothing that was actually romantically going on between them two. He just had a crush on her. So whether you believe that or not, I don't know. I don't even know if I believe that. But it was said that they, you know, went out a lot, they partied a lot, and he allowed her to stay with him in a hotel for a while where reportedly she slept in the bed and he slept on a chair. So whether that will actually happen, who knows? But it was said that nothing romantic happened between them. Now, this was literally in her final days. So on the morning of January the 9th of 1947, Manley took Elizabeth to the Biltmore Hotel in Hollywood to meet her married sister. Now, Elizabeth had decided to go back home to Massachusetts. Before that, she wanted to see her married sister and, you know, catch up with her and see her for a while before she went back home. So it was said that Robert left her at the hotel and did not wait for her to meet up with her sister. He kind of just dropped her off and left, and that was apparently the last time that anybody had ever seen her. It was said that she was missing for at least 5 to 6 days and then found dead on January 15th of 1947. So the last time anyone saw her is when she was waiting on her married sister, and then after that she went missing for around 6 days and then was found on January 15th. So now that we know a little bit about her life and the contents of it and the things that she went through, let's actually get into her death. So on the morning of January the 15th of 1947, a mother and her young child were going on a walk. So they were walking around a neighborhood in Los Angeles when they stumbled upon obviously something very, very gruesome. And at first the woman actually thought that what she saw was a mannequin. She did not think at first that it was a human body. She literally thought it was a mannequin thrown out in a yard for some reason, and so she really didn't think much of it. But then she went to look and then discovered that in fact it was a body. Now, one reason why the case of the Black Dahlia is so famous and infamous is because of the condition that the body was left in. And I'm not going to post pictures on it, and I'm not going to get too deep into detail because any of you guys, y'all can look it up like whenever you guys want, but I will kind of get the premises of it. The body was perfectly cut in half, like in the midsection. So she was cut in half. It was actually right below the lumbar spine. It was in an area where you could actually cut the body perfectly in half without breaking any bones, which is pretty crazy, right? But that's where it was cut in half. It was laid out in a very odd position, which was one reason why this woman thought that it was a mannequin. And besides that, one of the most, I guess, famous parts of this murder mystery was the way that the killer left her mouth. So basically what he did was cut these slits in her mouth from like up to, like from ear to ear, and like gave her this gruesome, I guess you could say like a Joker smile. It was just this huge cut open smile that was left on her body. And now, first of all, and I will get in more to this later, but the way her body was cut, it wasn't just like anybody did it. And her blood was also completely drained from her body. There was like no blood at the site, which also means that she was probably murdered somewhere else and then just dropped off there. So the FBI and LA police were called out, and after a short little while, the body was made out to be Elizabeth Short. And now, from back when I said she was arrested and her fingerprints and all that were on file, that's one way that they were able to tell that that is who she was. So basically now it was up to the police, by the help of witnesses and such, to figure out who did this. And unfortunately, this is another one of the reasons why this case is so popular, is because it's a cold case, and it's still a cold case to this day, and the killer never was found out. There is so many like leads to who the killer may be, which I will get into, but it's all like, it's all so crazy. And it's crazy how there wasn't like enough evidence or things like that, no witnesses or anything basically to be able to help the police figure out who it was. Now, there were some anonymous letters sent in, and they tried to match the fingerprints on those letters, but unfortunately the fingerprints on the letters could not be traced back to the database, which is something that really sucks, because obviously if you're not in the police's database for some type of crime or whatever, then you know, even today people have issues figuring out who killed who, because fingerprints as not actually being in a database. So now I'm going to skip forward many years to the actual 2000s and talk about what is probably the most closest lead to who the Black Dahlia's killer actually is, and who it probably actually is. Obviously this was cold for so many years, it's still cold, so we don't know for sure if it is this man, but this is the most likely case. So let me go ahead and tell you about it. So there is a man by the name of Steve Hodel. Now his father was a doctor who was a doctor in the age of the Black Dahlia. And now for many years, Steve Hodel didn't know a whole lot about his father's like private life of different things, but back in the early 2000s, or it may have even been in the late 90s, there wasn't an exact time laid out, but anyway, Steve's father George had passed away, and so therefore Steve was able to go through his father's belongings. And now a lot of stuff was just, you know, normal belongings and things there, but there were some things that were very fishy, and some things that he found were very chilling. And before I get into that, I want to state that his father George was a very secretive doctor. He was very distant and left his family at a very early age for Steve, and so therefore not a lot of things were known about him because of his secretive lifestyle. But anyway, back to Steve searching through his father's things. He was going through a photo album, and there were obviously normal pictures of family members and a famous artist family friend, but in the back behind that famous artist was pictures of some young ladies. And now Steve got to looking at these pictures very closely and realized that one looked exactly like the Black Dahlia, which it was, and he was just sparked by this, and he just knew that something was going on. So from that, he started crazy research into things, and it literally led into a rabbit hole of tons of information that would lead his father back to probably being the murderer of the Black Dahlia. So like I said back when I was telling you guys about how the Black Dahlia was left when the lady and her child found her, I talked about that certain way that her body was cut. Now that basically not just anybody could do that. That is the job of somebody who knows what they're doing, aka a doctor. The correct term of the way that she was cut is actually called a hemicorporectomy, I think. Like I said, it is a procedure that cuts the body straight through the bottom of the lumbar spine without breaking any bones. And this was actually a procedure taught in the 1930s when George would have been in medical school. Now, Steve did hire a lot of people to help him with this, to help him with the case and figuring out things about his father, and one person was somebody who analyzed handwriting, and it was also said that his father's handwriting seemed to perfectly match that of the anonymous person who was said to have been the killer of the Black Dahlia. When I was telling you about the anonymous letter back a few minutes ago, it was said that he actually matched up to that pretty perfectly. Now, another thing that could have led George Hodel to being the murderer was that all this stuff kind of went down close to where his family's house was. And another thing also was that around that time and around that area, it was said that George had bought 10 5-pound bags of concrete, which were the same brand and type that were found right by Elizabeth's body when she was murdered, and it was said that the killer would have carried her in those. So that's some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, literally George had purchased these right before her death, and it was the same brand, same type, laid right by her body when she was killed. So one of the most craziest things that Steve found about his father were some old transcripts. Now, most of these were normal, but listen to this. One thing that he found, and I quote these words straight from George: "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." So those words came straight out of his mouth through what he thought was secrecy, and that's pretty crazy. I do want to pop off on one tangent. If you guys are familiar with the Zodiac Killer, it's another thing that I'm very interested in. All that kind of stuff also went down around this time. And one crazy thing is, and now basically Steve was seen as being very truthful, like he was getting down to it. He was very well credited with the police, and reporters and all that good kind of stuff when it came to the Black Dahlia case because he was so driven. But he started to later think that possibly his father could have been the Zodiac killer too, and it was then is when he kind of lost credibility. But one crazy thing is, and I just have to mention it because it ties in, was that anyway, Steve thought that his father had killed more people than the Black Dahlia. Obviously I'm not going to get into that, but there were so many other clues and evidence that would have led his father just to being right out just pretty much a serial killer. And one thing that made him think that his father could also be the Zodiac killer was because of a specific murder that went down, was because of another specific murder that happened a few miles down from George's home on a street called Zodiac. That is pretty crazy and pretty ironic. And I mean, do I think that his father was also the Zodiac killer? No, probably not, but that is very ironic. But back to the whole Elizabeth Short ordeal, that transcript message was absolutely insane, and there is obviously a lot more evidence out there, a lot more that I've sat here and talked about, so that would be up to you guys to go research. But I feel like, honestly, deep down, he probably was the killer. Now, Steve has like literally put his whole life behind him to research this case. He has a few books out there, one of them being best-selling, and like I said, he has a lot of credibility with a lot of people, and he has really worked hard to debunk this because he feels obviously very strongly that his father was the killer. But it is still obviously a cold case. And actually, honestly, law enforcement has admitted to losing a lot of the evidence throughout the years, so it probably will remain to be technically a cold case. Obviously that's sad, but that's pretty much the basis of the Black Dahlia murder. I will kind of recap on things really fast. Basically, Elizabeth Short was born the daughter to Cleo and Phoebe. She was one of the daughters out of 5. Cleo, during the Great Depression, faked his own suicide, left his family, and all in all left them in a really bad place. After the Great Depression, Cleo wrote back to his family begging for forgiveness and admitting what he did. The mother wanted to have nothing to do with him, neither did Elizabeth's sisters, but Elizabeth actually decided that she wanted to take her father back. So she moved to California with him, but was not keeping her way. So therefore her father kicked her out. She led pretty much a wild kind of party life, dated around a lot, and went from house to house and man to man, and things just weren't going well for her. She wasn't becoming an actress like she wanted to be, and therefore that's pretty much the life she led all up until her murder on January the 15th of 1947, where she was gruesomely found laying right by a sidewalk in a neighborhood down in Hollywood with a clean cut right through her body and a crazy smile with her cheeks cut from ear to ear. Her case has been cold for many a year, with many suspects in mind, but they all cleared out. The most likely one to be George Hodel, who was a very famous doctor, and through his son it is believed that he probably killed a lot more people than even the Black Dahlia, but there's a lot of evidence in favor that he was the killer. Now, like I said, you can definitely go research all this for yourself. You can look obviously deeper into it, but I just basically wanted to cover the main parts of the story. It's one that I've always found so fascinating, and I enjoy history anyway, and I enjoy true crime. And so obviously I wanted to share this with you guys, especially because my Dahlia right here is named after the Black Dahlia. Aren't you? Did you like this? Was this fun for you? Do you think everybody's gonna like it? Okay. Thanks, Dahlia. Anyway, you guys, I really hope you enjoyed this true crime story time. Let me know down below if you did, and please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, which you can do by hitting my face right up there. You can watch another one of my videos by clicking right here, and it would mean the world to me if you would do so. Me and Dahlia hope that you have a great day or night or whenever you may be watching this, and I will see you guys in my next video.